Hi, I'm Mike Graham, and welcome to Tech Talk. Today, we're going to be covering one of my favorite subjects. We're going to be looking at using gobos and effects to create textures on surfaces. So today we're going to be using the Maverick MK3 profile. This fixture is super fitted out with a lot of great effects. It has a great zoom range, really crisp and clean focus ability. It has two gobo wheels, one rotating and one static. It has an animation wheel, it has framing shutters, two frosts, two prisms. So today this is going to be a great fixture to go ahead and check out all these great effects. So let's jump in and take a look. So starting out with some of just the basic overview functions of this fixture. We're going to start out here, and this is our 50-50 shot, which means that the fixture is in its middle point of its zoom range. We can go ahead and go narrow with this guy, so if you need to do longer throws, not a problem. You can go really wide with this guy as well, which adds a lot of functionality. If you're shooting closer to an object and you need to have more coverage, this is how you would do that. All right, so we're going to look at some of the base functionality of this fixture, just looking at things that are in there as effects. So let's start out by taking a look at the rotating gobo. This fixture does have several different rotating gobos inside the fixture. Some of them we're going to take a look at today. It has a combination of both great breakups for patterns on surfaces, as well as some really nice aerial effects that we'll look at in a few minutes as well. This fixture is also fitted with a static gobo, an animation wheel, and it has two prisms as well. So you have a 5-facet round as well as a 5-facet linear. One of the nice things about the way the prisms are set up on this fixture is that you get really good output throughout the entire range. So you'll notice that the output is actually very consistent across all the facets of that prism. It just makes it a lot easier to use on camera, because that way you don't have to worry about trying to white balance your camera around a specific look. This fixture also has the ability to actually overlap those prisms as well, so building some bigger and more dynamic looks is very easy. Taking a look at frost, this fixture happens to have two frosts on it, one lighter frost rolling in right there. I like the lighter frost for doing things just to take the edge off of a gobo. A lot of times when I'm putting an effect over a person, over a scenic element, I just like having a nice soft frost, so that way it takes the hard edge away, but you can still see the gobo that we're trying to build. And then rolling into the heavier frost, again, this is for effects where you need to have a little bit more diffusion. This gobo actually shows the frost really well, but if you're to use this over just a standard breakup gobo, it would give you a nice look as well. Another feature of this fixture is the framing shutters. It has 4 blades, which have a nice hard edge to them. You can bring them in as squares, rectangles, however you need them to be. You also have the ability to rotate those frames 120 degrees, so 60 degrees both directions if you start out at 0. You also have the ability with this fixture to do a complete wipe of the entire beam with one blade. That means you can do, if you want to do a blackout across a surface like this, you could go ahead and do that. Going back to just our square frame, using one blade coming across, we can build a triangle. We can build a small box if we needed to, if we needed to frame out something really small, or we could build a line and do a rotation at the same time, and you can build effects like that too. So if you wanted to build like a clock or something like that on a wall, you could do that with those shutter blades. It would look kind of cool. Okay, so coming out of the line, I wanted to show you guys going back into that box one more time. Another effect that's kind of cool is actually building a gobo in behind the framing shutters. This way you can go ahead and build a look where you would have your frame set up in a particular manner so that you're cut off of the surface. Let's say you were again trying to cut out that window box, but you wanted to have a gobo look on the inside of it. With this fixture, it's very easy to accomplish. And as always, while we're in here, guys, if any of y'all have any questions you want to throw them in here on the chat, please go ahead and type them in, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. So now that we've looked at some of the basic effects of this fixture, let's go ahead and start layering up those effects and take a look at some Gobo morphing and some texturing using different effects. So now that we've looked at some of the basic effects of this fixture, we're going to go ahead and start layering effects on top of each other so that we can get a feel for some of the things that this fixture can do. So we're going to start out by dropping in a rotating Gobo. I use this as a base, just so I can kind of see what I'm going to be shooting at. I happen to like this Gobo for doing Gobo morphing because it has a lot of blow through and a good amount of negative space, so it makes a really good Gobo to start with for that. We're going to drop in a static Gobo behind that. That way we can go ahead and start building the Gobo morph. And then to finally finish up this morph, we're going to go ahead and change the focus a little bit. By changing that focus, it's going to allow both Gobos to kind of sit in what I call the nether focus. That allows you to look at both sides of the Gobo to be able to get yourself some pretty cool effects. So I'm going to go ahead now and change that rotating Gobo to something completely different, which is really good Gobo for aerial effects. This is two geometric shapes within each other, and then it has that same breakout Gobo behind it. This is great for doing just overall textures as well as some great aerial effects, because if you do see this in the air and you blow haze through it, it does look really nice. So if I change that background Gobo, or the static Gobo from what it is right now to a different one, you're going to see a pretty big change in the effect. That effect now has some dots in the background, and we're going to see those in a couple seconds when we go ahead and make a few more changes. One of the really nice things about what I call the nether focus is that the stuff that's in your optical system now is going to not work the way you would normally think it would, but it's going to give you a little bit more option for texturing. That's really apparent when you start rolling in the CMY flags. So if I take the magenta flag and roll it into half position, normally if you had just an open image in normal focus, you would see like a soft rose color right now. But because we're in that weird focus position in the fixture, you're actually seeing the flags coming into half position, and we're allowing some white light to actually hit the subject. By doing this, it gives us a cool color texture, almost like a split color would on the color wheel, which is a really nice effect. So right now we're in this half magenta thing, which looks really nice, but I'm going to take this out and put a half frost in. And you're going to see a similar effect with that half frost. By making this change and rolling that half frost in, it's doing two things. Number one is taking those dots and it's making them look like they have life. So to me this looks like a cheetah print almost. And then you've got that dimensional stuff going on, and you got the half frost in there that's kind of blurring the image out a little bit. Again, this is a great way to cover a stage and really take advantage of that focal distance inside the fixture and just playing with that focus to give yourself something that's unique and different and is going to set your designs apart from somebody else's just by using these middle zones. Keeping along those same lines, we're going to go ahead and start thinking about animation. So by changing the Gobos again and giving ourselves a nice flat surface, a little bit of bumpiness, a little bit of effect going on. I got that rotating Gobo still doing the rotation thing. I got the static Gobo sitting there in the background. You still have this kind of a cool effect going on. If I add the animation in the background and just wheel it in there, now you start to see what I like to call, or what we all call, a water effect. One of the cool things about animation wheels is that they can run in either direction, either down like we are right now, or they can run backwards and go up. So building water effects or flame effects is what animation wheels are typically known for. But then by changing the focus and coming through them, you can build different effects. So I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm going to add some cyan in the same way that we did the magenta before, and give ourselves, again, that split look. I happen to like this for water quite a bit. It gives me that duality look of a split color. It emphasizes the water effect because there is some a little bit of breakup and negative space using that white, and it gives you an overall really cool look. And if I drop the static Gobo out of the back of that, this gives me a different texture feel. I'm still utilizing the negative space of the animation wheel, the Gobo, as well as what the color's doing to give myself a very textured look. This is going to look great on scenery all day long. If I take this opportunity here to change my colors, I can build a flame effect right from here by just making a color change. I'm going to go ahead and add in some yellow and magenta into this to give myself this ambery reddish hue look, which is a nice start to a flame effect. This is one way of doing it. It kind of gives you that more of a watery flame feel. If I change the yellow magenta from the CMY flags to a red and orange split on the color wheel, it's going to give me something completely different. So let's go ahead and check that out. So this will be more of a traditional flame effect, just using the split colors off the color wheel. It's a very, very easy way to accomplish a different look. So going from this style of flame effect, maybe I want something that's a little more edgy, a little bit more defined. I might go ahead and change my gobos and add in a prism. So in this case, we're going to flip to our bar gobo that's in this fixture and change out to a linear prism, maintaining the animation wheel, and it gives us a little bit more of a defined flame effect. In this situation, you can also stop the rotation of your prism if you wanted to, and just rely on the animation for the overall effect, which may also be an advantage for you as well. So don't forget, while we're in here, if you guys do have any questions, please go ahead and type them in, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. So one of the other features of this fixture is what we call virtual strobe, and I like to think of virtual strobe as like a secondary animation. What we're doing here is we're actually pulsing the LED back and forth on the drivers, allowing two sides of the LED to be on or off depending on how we have it set up. There's two ways it works. One is just chop, 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 back and forth, and the other is a nice rolling effect. So let's go ahead and take a look at those and how we would use those as an effect or as a texture for a surface. So go ahead and start out by dropping in our glass gobo. This is a shower glass that happens to look really good with this effect. So we'll sharpen it up right there a little bit and add in the virtual strobe. Again, I think of this more as an overall secondary animation effect because you are breathing a lot of life into a gobo like this. You're adding texture and depth to it. And I can speed up that overall look and make that move super fast. So if I want to have that movie camera effect, I can do that. And I can also slow roll this so I get that kind of a wavy motion, which is also pretty neat. If I add in, again, if I go into that half magenta, so I'm going to go ahead and speed this up a little bit again so you can get a little more of that dynamic feel to it. So by adding in magenta halfway, it gives you the overall look of having a nice soft rose color across the entire field. But by adding in the virtual strobe here, you also get that effect of moving stuff back and forth, and you get intensity shifts, which makes the color look a little bit more intense in some areas and less intense in others. Kind of a cool overall effect. If I speed that up, it's a lot more apparent. I happen to like this effect a lot with CTO in there as well. So if I roll out that magenta and take the CTO flags to full, it gives me this, what I think is a much more in-depth look. I happen to like how this looks a lot on surfaces, in theatrical applications and church applications, because I'm getting that nice full CTO warmth, but I'm getting the depth of this gobo, and then by changing things up a little bit with that virtual strobe, it gives me something really unique and different. If I throw in some animation behind that, just gives me a nice overall effect, a little bit of color in there. It's just something, again, that's just different from what you would normally see. And because we are still rolling a slow wobble in there behind that, you're still getting a little bit of fluctuation of the output. It looks really cool. Another area of layered effects possibilities lies in your iris and prism options. I happen to like this a lot for doing aerial effects as well as overall coverage. Sometimes it's cool as having the pop of the iris kind of doing its in and out thing, and then having the having the prisms rolling over top of it. So let's start out by having just our iris coming into full, and then we're going to go ahead and drop a prism around that. Again, one of the nice things about this fixture is because with the output being so even over the other facets, this overall look is actually really nice. So if I take that iris wide and then back to narrow and then back to wide again and back to narrow, you kind of get that feel of doing pulses, which can be really neat over a surface. Another way to do that is with overlapping both of these prisms. So you have your linear and round prisms working together to create a very unique effect. If I take that narrow, again, this is a really cool aerial effect. Should you choose to use it that way. Going back wide for that little pulse effect. Kind of cool going through the air and just doing that in and out look. Again, something to give a shot. And as we're rolling into our last set of textures, again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to add them in here. Also, we're going to be hanging out a few minutes after this feed is over. So if you have any questions afterwards and you want to throw them in, please go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead, again, we're going to drop in this Gobo. This is called the Four Eyes Gobo. And on its own, may not be super interesting. It is a decent aerial effect, but partnering this with a static Gobo and then sliding that focus, you start to get a very cool morphed out effect. I love it with these dots in the background. This is just a very basic breakup pattern, and then dropping a little bit of color on top of it. And because of where we're sitting in that nether region of the focus, again, we can get some nice color options going on here. We've got a little bit of yellow in here and a little bit of magenta that's just giving it that kind of depth feel to it. Again, by dropping some animation on top of that and rolling out a little bit of color, we're able to give ourselves this very cool kinetic look. And then one last thing I want to show you guys. If we go ahead and make some changes and drop some Gobos in and out of this, this gives us what I like to call a kinetic stained glass. The way that we're doing this is I've got magenta and cyan at about 50%. I'm using my shower glass breakup Gobo and an animation wheel. And it's just something that I happen to think is a really cool breakup look. Well, I hope you've all been able to pick up a few tips and tricks on how to best use some Gobos and animations together to create some very interesting effects. Don't forget that nether region of the focus range is your best friend in these situations, so go ahead and experiment with that. For more information, check us out on the web at CHAUVETprofessional.com. Until next time, I'm Mike Graham, and thank you very much for watching.